Today we're in the heart of London's Piccadilly area to meet AmandaBerry, Chief Executive of the British Academy of Film and Television Arts. Since taking up this role in 2000, Amanda has transformed the organisation, in particular their flagship annual awards event for the British film industry, the BAFTAs. And under Amanda's guidance, membership of the Academy has more than doubled. We started by asking Amanda what her role involves.
Well, I'm Chief Executive of BAFTA, which is the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, and it's so wide-ranging. So I was thinking about this as to how I could describe what I do. I think if I think about a typical week, I mean, if I look at today, I'm obviously doing this interview, I'm having lunch with a government minister, I've got an event this evening for one of our trustees who's 80 and is stepping down from his duties at the Academy. I'm meeting somebody for a legal post we've got, I've got a meeting about sponsorship. It's a really wide role. I think everybody knows the Academy for the award ceremonies that it does, but we have a much wider brief than that. We have 5,000 members in the UK, another 1,500 in the States. We have a very active membership and events programme, not only in London but throughout the UK and obviously in the States as well. So it's a very busy organisation.
What's the industry like to work in?
It's great. I mean, lots of people want to go into the media, which I totally understand why. I think what's important for me, and I think if I'm talking to people who want to move into the industry, is I actually wouldn't do a media studies degree. I'd do something else, because I know when I was a producer working in television that actually what I wanted from a production team was really mixed skills. So if I think about some of the programmes I worked on, I'd have somebody who used to be a nurse, somebody else who trained as a lawyer, somebody else who was a policeman. I mean, complete different backgrounds, because people then bring lots of different experiences to the role. And I'm not saying media studies is a bad thing, but try and do something else with it, in the same way, I suppose, as I did a business studies and graphic design course. It just gave me such a fantastic basis for going out to do lots of different things. And I think, you know, I had no media background at all, and I think I've just been lucky, and I think a lot of the media world is being in the right place at the right time. And I think if you look at a lot of the film schools, the students have often done other things before they've come to the film schools, because that gives them experience of life, which I think is really important. And I know when I'm hiring people, yes, qualifications are important, but actually I'd put common sense much higher up the list than fantastic qualifications, and people who I just think will react to situations and will cope with situations. You know, when I started at the Academy, it was the end of 1998. I came in as Director of Development and Events. And as I said, it was a time for real change. The Academy had been through some really tough times. Financially, it wasn't in a very healthy place. It had a very loyal and supportive membership of about 2,000 people, but the membership wasn't growing. People didn't feel it was an organisation that was representing the industry, and a lot of people, particularly younger people in the industry, didn't see why they should join the Academy. But there was a real will for change within the organisation itself. So the membership has grown in that time. We've now capped it at 6,500, so new members can only join if other members don't rejoin. So it's over doubled in that time. We had to look at our awards. I mean, our awards are only part of what we do, but they're our shop window. We are a charity promoting excellence to the general public. I then looked at the film awards and thought, why are they in April, which is where they were? Because there was a window where the world was looking at film, which is probably a bit of a grandiose statement, but I think it's true. And it was starting with the Golden Globes in January, you were then having the Oscars in March, and then suddenly 3 weeks later you were having the BAFTAs. So it just didn't seem that we were in the right place for the awards. So I spent a lot of time talking to the film committee and talking to people here about that. We also consulted a great deal with the industry and decided to move the awards, but it did take 2 years to make that decision to move the film awards pre-Oscars. And the interest in the event has just gone crazy. For instance, you know, when the awards were in 2001, the awards went out in one country, the UK. This year they were the highest selling UK export worldwide. We went out in 231 territories worldwide.
What are the best bits about what you do?
The best bits about working here are, and this is my own philosophy as well, which is what makes it so exciting, is that anything is possible. There is such goodwill towards the organisation that you can really pretty much achieve anything. I mean, obviously subject to budgets and permissions and everything else, but to give you an example, one year I was looking for somewhere to do the dinner for the Film Awards and somewhere different, and we had an idea that we'd like to use the QE2, and could we get the QE2 up the Thames? We thought, how fantastic would that be? It would be great for London because we'd get such news coverage, but also fantastic for nominees coming in from all over the world that they're actually having the dinner on the QE2. And we looked into it, we were so close to making it happen, and then discovered that if the tides were slightly lower than they should be, that we couldn't quite get it as far up the Thames, and we could only guarantee to get it to Greenwich, and so the whole sort of thing just started to fall apart. But isn't it fantastic to be in a job where you think, I wonder if I ring up the owners of the QE2 if I can get it up the Thames, and then you talk to the council and they're behind you, and that's what's wonderful, is it's always about pushing the boundaries. And I think particularly with the award shows, where you can only do so many things with them, there's a formula to them, and yes, you can tweak it each year and you can make it a little bit different each year, but what can you do around the event to grow it?
What about the worst bits and any challenges you might have faced, and how have you overcome them?
I think in the sort of 3 months running up to each award ceremony, you are constantly juggling problems. It's such a big event. We take over such a huge part of London. We divert the traffic. I think we worked out the weekend of the Film Awards, we've got 3,000 people working on the event, and you have thousands of people turning up to be there to watch it, and it's going out to over 1 billion people worldwide. It's not going to be easy sailing, I don't think. During the ceremonies, I'm just in agony. I am sitting on my hands. I am praying that everything goes right, and it's the things that go wrong are normally the things that you can't control. And when it rains, particularly with the Film Awards, about every 4 years we seem to get monsoon weather. It doesn't just drizzle, it absolutely buckets down. And every interview I do, so I'm going to bring it up this time rather than waiting for you to bring it up, people bring up the foaming carpet. I think it was 2001. I think it was the first year we moved before the Oscars. And the rain was so heavy that the red carpet started to foam. Now, of course, the press had a field day with this. I think most of them reckoned it was a second-hand carpet which would wash, but we hadn't quite got the soap out. What it actually was fire retardant, because for legal and insurance reasons, for an outdoor event, you've got to fireproof the carpet. I'm not quite sure why, but you have to. And that's what it was. So, as soon as I was able to talk to the press, I could then spin it and say, well, it was awful that it happened. Nobody had forecast the rain was going to be so heavy, but all those Jimmy Choos are fireproof for life now, so people don't need to worry. But literally, the press the next day had pictures of Judi Dench and Kate Winslet wading with their dresses, lifted up, and their shoes just being covered in this white foam.
Do you have a mentor or a quote that inspires you?
I was thinking about that. I don't really have a mentor. I think it's interesting because people always think there must be a woman who inspires me. And this is probably going to sound like a very odd statement, but it's not that I don't think of myself as a woman, but I think in the work environment, I think of myself as a person. And a few years ago, I was actually honoured to be one of the Women of the Year, which was fantastic, but I actually felt really uncomfortable about it, because I didn't think what I'd achieved was because I was a woman, it was because I was a person. And I know that's not the same for lots of people, and lots of women have had to fight really hard to achieve what they've achieved, particularly in male-dominated environments, but I'd never come across that. So, as I said, I found it a very odd situation to be in, although I was very proud to be honoured in that way. I think if there's a quote, there's a Scottish quote, which is, "What's for you won't go by you." Which again, people may think that's very odd, and how does that help you get to where you've got today? But I honestly believe that. I honestly believe that what's right for you, you'll find.
What do you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
People always say when you look back, what have you learned that would have meant you did things differently? I actually think you should spin that. I think when you're younger, you don't worry about anything. And I often wish I'd been braver when I'd been younger. I think as you get older, I think you worry more, you think about things more, you don't tend to go for things in the same way. So I'm not sure there's anything I've learned now that would have meant I'd done things differently or mean I do things differently today.
What advice would you give to young women who are starting out? Have you got any secrets for success?
Yeah, I think it's about believing in yourself, and I think that's something, looking back, I probably wish I'd believed in myself more. But maybe I did and just never realised it, and that, when I talk about working hard, that was actually me believing I could do the job and moving things forward in that way. So I think it's all about believing in yourself, believing anything is possible, not giving up. But not believing in yourself so much that it comes across as arrogance, because I don't think that's appealing in anybody. But really trying to work out what it is you want to do. But equally, if you go into a field and it's not what you want to do, then don't be afraid of just taking a complete other turn and doing something else. Yes, everything I've done has been in the media, but I've gone from PR to being a theatrical agent to being a researcher to being a producer. I don't think you should ever pigeonhole yourself, because I don't think jobs are so one-dimensional now. I think jobs are three-dimensional, and people have to have lots of different skills, so people shouldn't be afraid of changing direction.
What's the best lesson you've ever learned?
Probably, and this was one of my first bosses and he actually said it in a rude way, so I won't repeat that because it involves swear words, but it's about never assuming anything. And that is something I always say to people, on top of always question things. If you're coming into a new organisation, look at how things are done. Are there better ways of doing it? And obviously there's always politics there about ruffling feathers and everything, but if there's a better way, that will normally win through. But also never assume. And people have learned around me never to say, "Oh, I assumed they were coming," or "I assumed they'd do that," or "I assumed it wouldn't rain," or whatever. Always double check. And that's probably the most valuable lesson I've ever learned.
And what's the best advice you've ever received?
It's probably the same, actually. It's never assume anything. And I think it's also about listening to other people. And particularly in an organisation like this, where we have a number of committees, but then most companies have boards, people have so much to give, and people from different backgrounds have different experiences. And it's about learning from other people, and never just getting to the stage where you think, "Oh, we've always done it this way, that's fine." It's always about moving things forward and growing things. And if you have got something that's 100% right, well, next year let's make it 102% right. And just, growing, but using other people's expertise as well to help you on your way.